All right, and thanks for sharing your garden with us. We're now going to turn our attention to garden design, and I'm very excited about this. I always love to talk about design. My guest is Ginger Hudson, who writes about design and gardening on the web, and she has her own website. Also teaches at the Wildflower Center at the Laguna Gloria School of Art. Welcome to our program. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks, Tom. I'm very glad to be here.
Well, we're going to be talking about helping people with some big, simple ideas that will give them kind of the tools they need to get out there and reshape their landscape. And after the weather we've experienced for the past year, some of the landscapes out there need reshaping.
Exactly. The last couple of years have been torture on our gardens, but they give us an opportunity to get out there and see what we really want, to open up the space. And you can get out in the garden and look at that space and see where you want to be and how you want to rearrange it.
Yeah, well, the opening of the space means dead plants. Lots of dead plants all over. You know, all those people who bought into all those tropical palms are probably feeling the pain right now. But we have, again, a lot of opportunity when you have these points of transition in the garden. And rather than being, oh, poor pitiful us about it, this is an opportunity really sometimes to start afresh. And one of the things that so many gardeners lack is our key ideas about how to pull together the plants they love and the spaces that they're going to be inhabiting. So let's start off by talking about some of the key concepts they really need. I always wonder about how you get started.
Well, through my experience in teaching over the years, I've learned to distill the topics down to just a few issues. And the first is your focal point.
Okay.
What is it that takes you out into the garden? Why do you want to be in the garden? Or did somebody give you a gift for Christmas, a fountain or a piece of art? Well, there's your focal point. That's your first starting point for getting out into the garden. Where do you want to place that? Or do you sit in a certain room and look out one window all the time? What are you looking at?
That's, to me, it's all about connecting. You know, you connect the inside to the outside. How you transition into the garden is also really important. But focal points are key, you know, because too many of us, I think, collect a big assemblage of plants and other things, but then we feel something's lacking because it's too random. It doesn't have any sense of kind of unity.
Exactly.
And focal points can do that.
Right. You get, plant lovers will have just a collection of plants. But if you pick out that one that you want to be the special one, a specimen plant is what we would call that kind of focal point, a pretty red bud or a flowering plum, Mexican plum, and that's your object. That's where you start, with that one feature that you really like to look at, and then shape around there. And how do you get to that point? That's your next idea of your axis or your flow or your path. How do you get to those objects?
Well, okay, so focal point is number one. Use that as a kind of a place to focus the energy of the plant. Maybe build up some things around your focal point so that you get that sense that this is the important thing.
Yes.
But then this whole idea of what designers use the word axis. I like to say view corridors.
Good interpretation. And axes are more of a formal reference. Old gardens were very geometrically laid out, and they don't have to be that way here because here we like to do wildscapes.
Sure.
So your corridor can be curved or it can be straight.
Right.
But the view corridor is what leads your eye to that beautiful thing or sitting point or focal point in your garden.
Right.
And if you have a small garden, make that corridor a little curved, and it gives you the illusion of having a bigger garden.
Right, right. And view corridors also, I mean, they tell you what's important. They tell you where to walk. They tell you where to look. And they actually can direct your steps because view corridors often become pathways, right? Right,
exactly. And when you're defining those pathways, what you'll do with the gardens to the edge of the pathways are fill them with masses of the things that you like. You have your focal point, but along the way, put groups of objects, plants that are similar to help define that path if you're not going to use a hardscape material or something else to define the path.
Yeah. So we have focal points, view corridors or axes, and then also a very important thing when considering the design is scale and how big things are, right?
This is where you might have to do a little more research, especially in your plants. Scale is a relationship of size of objects to one another. And so what I try to discourage or encourage people to do is make sure the plants or plant groupings or tree that you're selecting works well with the size of your house or the size of your garden.
Yeah.
For instance, you wouldn't want a 60-foot tall bald cypress if you lived in a small bungalow that was really tiny, and then you have this vast space between the two undefined.
Right, right. And scale to me also means the size of our planting beds. You know, so many of the new homes you see out there, they're often are impressive. Even if they're built to look like bungalows, they're architecturally busy and impressive spaces, and yet the planting beds are these thin little strips, or they plunk a tree down, and that's it. You know, so you need some massing and large-scale beds, I think, to kind of soften all of that. And
to bring those plants away from the house. A lot of times, like you say, the developer puts them right up next to the house. It's bad for the house, but it also doesn't give your garden a sense of size. Move the garden away, get rid of some of that turf grass they put in to save money, get the plants in that are more interesting, beneficial for wildlife, and fun to look at.
Let's talk about how some people can get these ideas down on paper, okay? We've got a lot of folks out there in the audience who are probably interested. They have some tools available to them too. Usually, most homeowners have property site drawings that show where the house is in relationship to the lot and have the outlines of the lot, right? Is that where you start with most landscape designs?
Yes, that if you have your site plan from when you closed on your house or your property, you have the basic tool that you need. That way, you don't have to go measure everything yourself.
Important.
Yes, saves a lot of time and headache.
Right.
So what I do with my students in my classes is we enlarge that site plan to a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch scale that's easy for you to read and draw on and visualize yourself. And the importance is to make sure you're working in a scale that you understand. And this time scale meaning a ruler, an architect's ruler.
Right.
So you enlarge your scale, start with your flow or your object like we've talked about before, the important elements. Just get those in pencil on your new site plan, and then start looking for the plants that you like.
Yeah, it's really that simple. Organizing things around these points of connection. You know, for example, putting that focal point where you can see it from your home,
or get
and then
to
creating a pathway to get to it.
Right.
Simple little connective things that will make the garden a much more pleasurable experience and bring that sense of unity that design is supposed to do, right?
Exactly.
Okay. And again, it doesn't all have to be formal European geometry. Here in Central Texas, we like the kind of the loose shagginess of our native plants and the grasses and all those kinds of things as well. So feel free to explore and experiment. And there are a lot of good natives out there that will not only beautify the garden, but also kind of bring in some of the visitors that we love too, right?
Exactly. And look around at what's looking good right now. What made it through the freeze? Look what was blooming last summer. All kinds of things were still blooming last summer. Yellow bells, desert willows. Right now in the winter we have rosemary, flowering quince. There are things that do survive our weather. And now you have the opportunity to get those in, and now is the best time to be planting in the winter.
Well, for so many of these things, especially the woody shrubs and the trees and things like that, you really do want to start getting stuff in the ground. Who knows what next summer will bring, right?
Exactly.
Right. So I want to talk real briefly about how people can learn more from you. And you do teach classes, as I referenced. Real briefly, tell us about those.
The classes at Laguna Gloria are through the art school.
Okay.
They're a 4-week program, 1 night a week, and students learn all the tools they need, the art supplies. It's hands-on. They get it done in the class, their new design.
Cool.
And their design will be unique.
Yeah.
They did it themselves.
Great.
And you would be surprised at all the people who come through the classes and think, I can't draw. Well, it doesn't matter. You can learn. It's not that hard.
And you also teach at the Wildflower Center.
The Wildflower Center is the Go Native U program run through UT Informal Classes. Fantastic program, 6 weekends, different subjects every weekend.
All right. Well, that's great. and very accessible places to go learn. Great tips for the home folks out there. So again, focal points, axis, and scale. I think that's pretty easy.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, it's been a real pleasure. And coming up next is our friend Daphne Richards.